Hey guys, Andy here from Mediocre Hobbies. I have been personally threatened by a very dangerous individual to provide him with a how to paint flesh tearers in my quick and easy to follow tutorial method. So, not one to disappoint and liking all of my digits straight, I am going to give you guys exactly what you need. So stick around and enjoy the video. Okay guys, what better model to use to test a Flesh Tearers paint scheme than an Assault Intercessor. Any good Space Marine holding a chain weapon will of course do the job very nicely. The model was sprayed Grey Seer, and then from there we moved on to Flesh Tearers Red Contrast. Who would have thunk it? Flesh Tearers Red Contrast is really good at painting Flesh Tearers. So a lot of people are under the assumption that you can't paint power armor using contrast. This is of course incorrect. It's just another skill. It just requires a bit of time. If you put in the work, you will learn how to use contrast on power armor to get absolutely stunning results. I, for one, am a huge advocate for using contrast for pretty much all base coats across all of my projects. I find it works really fast and really does help you get more miniatures painted out on the table. So like I said, I soldiered through and I got Flesh Tearers Red Contrast on all of the parts of the model that needed to be red, leaving all of the soft seals and all of the other parts that need to go black, as is the Flesh Tearers color scheme. I left them with just the Grey Seer spray. From there we jumped over to Black Templar, and we used Black Templar on every single part of the model that is still just the base coat spray. So all of the soft seals, even the weapons that are going to have large amounts of metallics, I always like to start by going in with the Black Templar. Painting metallics over a darker contrast is a lot easier than going over the kind of white contrast that we have here, or the white base coat that we have here. It really washes out the metallics, which is something that we don't want to do. So just to give you one tip on how to use contrast on power armor, I would say that the trick is to overload your brush. Have quite a lot of contrast on your brush and push that around the part that you're applying the contrast to, as opposed to having a thin layer of contrast on the miniature or the part that you're trying to paint and you're like dragging paint around, causing tearing, and that's where you get those horrible lines from, and it's not what you want. Once you have the two primary colors on, red and black, as you can see, it makes a huge difference already. From here we're going to jump over to a metallic. I'm going to go for Iron Hand Steel. It's just a nice dark base coat silver that's perfect for getting a first coat of silver down on Space Marine bolt weapons and their basic chain weapons. Obviously this guy is just a basic Assault Intercessor. He is no captain, he is no hero yet, so he does not have a lot of filigree or gold or anything like that, so the hilt of his sword is going to say silver, same as pommel. If he was a higher rank, he may have had a few pieces of gold iconography designed in. That's not really the Flesh Tearer way either. They kind of scoff for any sort of adornment like that. And that's it. I've used 3 colors, 3 pots of paint, and I've gotten the miniature entirely base coated. Not too shabby so far. So all we're going to do now is shade the entire miniature. And for this, we are going to use Nuln Oil. Now, a note on using Nuln Oil. I'm going to be using the new Nuln Oil. That's in the 18mm pot, the same pot size that Contrast is in. If you're following along with this video and you're using Nuln Oil and you have the taller pot, that is not going to work. It is going to be far too dark, as the new Nuln Oil is a lot thinner in consistency. So it settles into the recesses a lot easier and leaves the color behind on the flat surfaces better. So just be aware of that as you're following along. So Nuln Oil, like I said, was applied to the entire miniature. Black, silver and red. Sorry for the camera deciding to focus on anything other than the part that I wanted to, which is something I struggle with on a video by video basis. So this is the shade applied to the entire miniature, and while I wait for that to dry, I'm also going to get the whole miniature based, so that when I go into the layering stage, it's just kind of moving towards a finished product, as opposed to a model at the end that's finished painted but has a plain base. So here it is with the shade all dry. Now I actually think this looks fantastic, and if you're in a real rush to get your army painted, or painting is not for you but you do like the idea of having a painted army, you could very comfortably leave the model at this stage and be really happy with it. If you put 10 of these guys in a squad on a table up to this standard, that's going to look fantastic. And that's 3 paints on a wash. So I'm going to show you how if you add another 3 paints on top of that, we are going to add a bunch of extra detail and just kind of sharpen the model up. So we're going to start with Khorne Red, and all I'm going to do is add a quick layer job to all of the red parts of the power armor. I'm not going to lie to you, this bit is the most tedious part of painting it, although I quite enjoy layering power armor, but I could just be one of those weird people. I don't like edge highlighting, I like layering, which distinction, take from that as you will. Especially doing stuff like reds where the layering job is so smooth, it goes on so easy, and it gives you a really fantastic result. I would say it would only take kind of 5 minutes a miniature to do this layering job. So obviously if you're doing 10 guys at the same time, that's nearly an hour of layering red, which can be a bit tedious. Just break it down a little bit smaller, do 3 models at a time or 5 models at a time. That's a really comfortable number. And obviously the more you do, the faster you'll get. And all I'm doing is leaving that fleshed hairs red that's been washed with Nuln Oil in all the recesses and creases of all the armor. And all of the higher panels, we just want to hit with the red. Here's the chest done. You can see the dramatic difference it makes compared to the legs. And then I'm just going to follow through with the rest of the miniature, using all of those natural breaks in the armor to know where I'm supposed to layer and where I'm supposed to not. Basically, don't paint over the really dark parts. Once this is done, you're going to be left with quite a neat and tidy scheme. Not sure how fleshed hairy it is to have nice, neat, fresh armor, but that's something we'll get to at the end. So here it is with all of the red layered up. Like I said, I'm really happy with the result. Now we're going to try and work on that black. So I'm going to take the base paint Corvus Black. Corvus Black is a really fantastic paint to use to layer up black because it has a touch of grey to it, which means it does actually work as a layer paint. It's just not going to darken and dull down the entire thing. But the black Templar that we use as a base coat that was washed with Nuln Oil, just like the red, you leave that in all the recesses and the model is good. The black that you're layering up, it's going to look super sharp. It's going to look like a nice highlighted and layered thing, as opposed to being that really kind of flat black, which I'm really not a huge fan of on miniatures. Especially if you're not going to go to the effort of edge highlighting, which I don't like doing, leaving it as a flat base coat. It's going to make all the difference. So here's all the grey, the black layered up. As you can see, as a miniature, it's looking super neat. You'll notice that I didn't layer up the chest piece because I think the Aquila on the center looks absolutely fantastic as just a Nuln Oil Black Templar. It stands out as a nice decorative piece on the armor. We jumped up to Ironbreaker to layer all of the metallics on this, all of the silver parts on his chainsword, pistol, and the skull and center of his chest. I also once again highlighted the eye lenses. Whenever I'm painting Space Marine eye lenses, all I do is paint the lenses themselves a bright silver, and then I just throw a contrast on top of them. By looking at Fleshed Hair's artwork, I realized that most of their eye lenses are green. So I grabbed Warp Lightning and quickly applied a coat of that on top of the bright silver after it had dried, and you're left with these beautiful glowing eye lenses. And there we have it, one completed Fleshed Hair's Space Marine. Now, I like mine to be a little bit more war-torn, so I'm going to take this one step further, or 2 steps further, by adding in a couple of kind of technical effects. So I'm going to go back to my Iron Hand Steel, and I'm going to quickly sponge on a few silver specks. So all you do is basically load up the sponge with a little bit of silver paint, and then scrape it off on an excess bit of tissue until there's barely any paint left, like dry brushing. And then you're just going to stab at the model a little bit to add some chipping and weathering damage to the armor. Fleshed Hairs are always going to be in the heart of the most vicious fighting on the battlefield, so their armor is not going to stay pristine for very long. They're also absolute savages on the battlefield, loving nothing more than to be completely covered in the blood of their enemy. So I added some blood for the Blood God to his chain weapon to show that he has not scoffed his duties, and he has indeed been fighting hard for the Emperor and the Imperium. So this is my finished Fleshed Hair Space Marine. Unfortunately, I didn't have any Fleshed Hairs transfers to apply to shoulders. I wish I had to show you guys. But as it stands, I'm super happy with the result. I hope you guys are as well. A quick 360 shows the final result. I know at some stage I will have a studio Blood Angels army, and I know that it will be Flesh Tearers, as Flesh Tearers are, without a shadow of doubt, my favorite sub-faction of Blood Angels. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you learned how to paint a Flesh Tearer Space Marine. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you drop a like below. If you have any questions, or if you would like to suggest what the next random Successor Space Marine chapter that you would like to see brought into video form, put that in the comments below, and it would help me decide on what future videos to do. If you like what I do and want to support me, there's a number of ways in which you can do it. The simplest and cheapest way to do it is to just hit that subscribe button. The more followers I have, the more my videos get pushed out, more people see them, the more it grows, so on and so forth. If you really enjoy what I do and want to support me even further, there's links to things like my Patreon below. By joining my Patreon, you get access to things like a private Discord server where you'll be involved in community showcases, painting competitions, and generally just good, helpful tips and tricks from a ever-growing community. Thank you guys so much for watching to the end of the video. I'll catch you in the next one.